I'd like to welcome you to our 5,314th club meeting. For over 111 years, we have welcomed Rotarians and guests from around the world to our club meetings. We continue to do so virtually. So if you're a visiting Rotarian or if you're a guest of a Rotarian, please let me know by typing your name and the name of your club into the chat box located at the center bottom of the screen as indicated by the red arrow on the slide you're viewing now. By doing so, we will be able to recognize you later in this meeting. Also, we recommend that all participants view this Zoom meeting by clicking the speaker view button located in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. And if you have comments throughout the meeting or questions for the speaker, please use the chat button at the bottom of the screen for that as well. And now for our thought of the day, Rotarian Sam Miller.
Hello, Rotarians. For our thought for today, I am taking something I read from a new US citizen, originally from Uganda. And he just became a citizen, and this is what he said: democracy is something to be cherished, and true democracy is actually where people are taken seriously and where people's voices do matter. So, as you all know, this is a critical time for our democracy. I encourage all of you to vote, to tell your friends, colleagues, and family to vote. And if you have time, to get engaged and involved through poll watching, poll viewing, hotlines, whatever you can do, because our democracy depends on all of us being involved in voting. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Because we want to remain grounded and focused, we begin our meetings by jointly reciting our vision, which is, together we see a world, unite, and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. I hope you enjoyed last week's meeting that featured our district governor and my presidential challenge. I'll remind you of that. As part of our commitment, we joined Rotary. We committed to practicing service above self and by contributing to the Rotary Foundation and Oakland Rotary Endowment. That's why I offered the presidential challenge of 100% participation for all Oakland Rotarians. I'll give $50,000 to this year's TRF campaign and $50,000 to this year's ORE campaign as an incentive for our club to achieve 100% financial participation in both campaigns. I do this so that we can participate collectively in our campaign and all can enjoy what I call the gift of giving. Each of us are blessed to be a part of Rotary, and what you give to the community and the world comes back to you tenfold. I remind you that the dues do not cover your gift to the campaign, so I'm personally asking you, indeed, I'm challenging you in this COVID-19 year to join your fellow Rotarians and to make a financial commitment to support TRF and ORE and all the work we do. Giving is not just about making a donation, it's about making a difference. The President's Challenge, $100,000 for 100% participation. Give what you can. Now, today, I get off my speech box there for a little bit. Today, we have another great speaker, so sit back and enjoy another in our great Civic Thursday meetings where you can catch a great speaker and get involved with Rotary where service above self exists. So let's get started with the meeting with our Business Development Committee sponsor this week, Rotarian David Gerber.
Hey everyone, thanks Ces. It's great to be with you all, and I miss seeing you all on Thursdays, and miss all of my Rotary community, but we get Zoom and it's the best we get for now. So it's great to see you all. I just want to share a bit. It's an honor to sponsor a meeting for the club, and so thanks for sharing with me. I got my 3 minutes on the clock, Ces, so no worries, I won't go over, I promise. I just want to share a bit about, if you look at the slide on the board, I'm going to share a little bit about what the work that I do, the work that my coaching firm does. And so if you look at the slide on the board, or on the screen in front of you. What you'll notice, one of the things that we've seen over the last 10 years that I've done this work is that people, one of the things that people consistently do is they underestimate their capacity. And so if you think about this, it's the idea that most likely every one of us on this call has at some point or another done something that we didn't think we could do, something that was outside of our, what we would call an intuitive fence. You could call it a comfort zone or whatever. So we've done something outside of that intuitive fence. But then what happens is we constantly, there's this tension to stay inside of the fence. And if you will, if the fence is like where you start to go into something is impossible, inside the fence is things that would be in your comfort zone or your realm of possibility. And so what happens is we tend to have this tension to live inside of the circle, inside of our comfort zone, inside of our intuitive fence, rather than go after the things outside of the fence that really, really excite us. And so the work that I get to do really is inviting people consistently outside of the intuitive fence, because that's where all the fun is had. It's also where all the risk is had. It's all the failures are potentially had. And so any of you that have done that, you know what it's like to step outside of the fence. And so, and then I want to just share a quick story and then I'll wrap up. So, I wanted to share, I've got a number of stories I could share, but I wanted to share a personal one because I like to connect to people. And so I thought I'd share a personal story of how this has impacted my life. And the biggest way with this is about 6 months ago, Sarah and I and my wife, some of you know her, we started working with a coach to help us with our marriage. And we had noticed there were some things like outside the fence, we wanted a better marriage, and we were feeling this tension to just settle for okay, this kind of works, but yet we want something better. And so we started working with a coach together. And I had a huge insight in that time. And this is what coaching does, is it helps you find blind spots. And I discovered this blind spot in my world where there's times when I would communicate with Sarah and it wouldn't communicate well. And then I would get upset with her when she didn't get my communication. And the marriage coach helped us see that. And then as I started to operate differently with Sarah, it started to really open up our communication in our marriage. And so that can work on a personal level. It can work on a business level. It can open up blind spots and it create new possibilities in the future. And so anyway, so if you're interested in any sort of thing like that, feel free to email me. And my time's up, Seth. Feel free to email me. Feel free to email me. I'm happy to have an exploratory call with you or somebody else in our firm. So thank you all. I hope you have a great rest of the meeting.
Thank you, David. That was good and timely. We like that. And now, past District Governor Ed Gelernt. Do we have any visiting Rotarians or guests?
Hello, President Ces. No visiting Rotarians checked in, but we do have some terrific guests with us today. Let me look out there and see. Marie Sabramutu brought with her today her daughter and 3 of her Sri Lankan girlfriends. Just for those of you who need a little reminder on your high school geography, Sri Lanka is off the southeast coast of India, and it's about the same size as the state of Georgia. Mm-hmm. So a little factoid there for everybody. First, Marie's daughter, Janisha Sabramutu, is here with us today. So welcome, Janisha. Nice to have you with us. We also have Sonali Tucker as our guest today. So Sonali, welcome. We have Ardni Pelpola. So welcome, Ardni. And last but not least, we have Ruba Joseph. So those are Marie's girlfriends with us today, plus her daughter.
Thank you so much for that introduction, past District Governor Ed Gelernt. We remind you this is opt-in, so you can bring all your guests today, this Thursday and next Thursday. I guess we got one more Thursday meeting left here in this month, where we're trying to get guests and interested members of becoming Rotarians. Past President Robert Kidd, I understand you have an announcement regarding the High Adventure Committee. Robert Kidd.
Unmute, Robert.
You're on mute. Well, I see him operating there. No good. All right. Robert got a problem with his communication there. We have a tradition We'll come back to you, Robbie, when we get a chance. We have a tradition of transitioning our red badge to blue badge, new member to a fully engaged member when that member completes certain tasks. Those are go through the new member orientation, join a committee, giving commitment to Rotary Foundation and Oakland Rotary Endowment, i.e. President's Challenge, and to give a 3-minute self-introduction. And today, we have Rotarian Jack Iles, our AV committee co-chair, giving his 3-minute introduction. Jack.
Hey, thank you, President Ces. I'm excited to, have the floor for 3 minutes, and like David, I'll try to be prompt and not go over. But as President Ces said, I am co-chair with Sandeepa of the AV committee. So I'm always here in the meetings, but usually in the background, trying my best to make them run smoothly and seamlessly. And you guys have been very forthcoming with recommendations and very patient with us. So thank you as we try to figure that all out, transitioning into totally digital meetings. A little background on me. I grew up in the Central Valley. I did 4-H. I used to raise pygmy goats and show them in the fair. I came to the Bay Area for college, went to St. Mary's, graduated in the integral program, which was a great books program. So I know Alex Polson went to sort of our mother school, which was another great books program. But just St. Mary's shout out, go Gales. I know we've got a lot of bears on the other side of the hill, and I feel like St. Mary's doesn't get as much love. After college, I started working at Otis McAllister. They're a super old company, I think about 130 years old. They moved from San Francisco a few years ago into Oakland, and we're now in the old Rotunda building. So it's just a total joy to work there in such a beautiful building. And I sell to grocery stores. I sell rice products. I sell CPG goods. And so if you're ever shopping around at, Berkeley Bowl or maybe Safeway or something, and you want to buy my rice, let me know. I'll let you know what products it is. But I would really, really appreciate the support. So a little shameless plug there. But I'm looking forward to getting back to real meetings whenever it's safe. Looking forward to wearing my red badge and having fellowship with everyone again. Blue badges, that's right. The blue meeting or the virtual meetings have been nice. It's better than nothing, but nothing really compares to being able to sit down and lunch with everyone and see the great speakers and, have the merriment. So with that, I'll end a couple seconds early, and thank you everyone for being so welcoming. It's really been a great club to join as I start my professional career.
Thank you, Jack. And when we return to in-person meetings, your shiny new blue badge indicating completion of permanent member requirements is waiting on you. Congratulations. Now we're gonna go back to past President Robert Kidd. You wanna give us a try to at least, if we can get your audio there, announcement on high adventure.
How about this, Ces? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we got you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
On the morning, it says on the morning of November 7th, Saturday, November 7th, the High Adventure Committee will host a hike in Leona Canyon, 3 miles round trip from Keller Avenue up to Merritt College and back. This will be the first opportunity for Rotarians to actually meet face to face following the election. So it'll be our opportunity to either celebrate or bemoan the outcomes as the case may be. Did I mention this? If you have a dog, your dog is also invited to join us. So if you can come, Leona Canyon, Saturday, November 7th, just go to the Rotary calendar, click on the RSVP button, and I look forward to seeing you then and there. Thanks, Ces.
Very good. You got one more introduction, I understand.
Well, I do. Thank you for mentioning that. At our meeting next Thursday, right? Next Thursday, October 29th, our Rotary Club will conduct its annual Halloween mask contest. And please keep in mind that when I say a mask, I'm not talking about this kind of mask. I'm talking about a Halloween mask. So go to work on your mask now, wear it at next week's Zoom meeting. The winner will receive this elegant, handcrafted jack-o'-lantern, stuffed full of Halloween goodies, specially curated for this event. Next week at Rotary number 3.
Very good. Look forward to that. Everybody wear your mask next week. We'll have fun at our meeting next week. Past President Sean Marks, you have an announcement from Business Development Committee.
Thank you, President Ces. I'm past President Sean Marks, and I'm coming to you from the Wizard of Oz poppy field today. I want to remind everyone also next week we have a very important election, and that is the election of the nominating committee that will choose our board of directors for next year and our president for 2 years from now. And so please attend and plan to vote next week. I'm talking to you today about a very exciting event that the Business Development Committee is hosting on November 5th from 3 to 5. And the purpose of that event is to help Oakland and other businesses connect with each other and to promote commerce between Rotarians and Rotary Clubs. The event is international, so the showing for it already has been outstanding. And there's 2 great things happening at the event. I am really excited because Ces has agreed to share his career path with us. And Ces, as most of you know, is one of our club's outstanding entrepreneurs. I'm really excited to hear that. In addition, Mayor Libby Schaaf will be joining us. It's post-election, so it should be a pretty interesting 20 minutes with Libby and opportunity to ask some questions. So fellow Oakland Rotary member Libby Schaaf as well. And then there's also 2 breakout rooms. They're 40 minutes each. And in those breakout rooms, not only will you get to understand and know about other Oakland businesses, but there'll be an opportunity to kind of interact around the topic. Let's see, what have I missed? I will post the link to the event in chat. I should have looked before. It's probably also up on the website. And really, if you're an Oakland Rotary 3 member, it's really important to attend. I want to encourage everyone to sign up. Thank you very much, Seth.
Thank you, Past President Sean. That's a lot of chock full of good information that you have there. One not so good was about me telling all of my career path, but I'll be there for it. Now, we're going to have our speaker a little bit earlier this day because I think our speaker has to leave us before long. So Rotarian Gary Flaxman, do you us the honor of introducing this week's Civic Thursday speaker.
All right, thank you, President Ces. I'm so honored and quite honestly so proud to be able to introduce my friend Lee Gelernt. It's actually sort of mind-blowing. This would have been our 40th reunion. So because of the pandemic, this is the equivalent of it for me. So I'm really very, very honored to introduce Lee. Lee's widely recognized as one of the country's leading public interest lawyers, having argued dozens of important civil rights cases throughout his career. Without doing a disservice to an incredibly long list of high-profile cases, he's argued some recent cases that include national class action challenge to the Trump administration's unprecedented practice of separating immigrant families at the border. This case is featured in a 2020 documentary film called The Fight and in a July 2018 New York Times Magazine cover story about the ACLU. He also was involved with successful challenges in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals to the Trump administration's first and second asylum bans. In the aftermath of September 11th attack, he litigated several high-profile national security cases and served as one of only a few human rights observers at Guantanamo Bay. In addition to his work at the ACLU, he is currently an adjunct professor at Columbia Law School and for several years was a visiting professor at Yale Law School. So in the interest of time, let me allow Lee to fill us in on other impressive career highlights. My friend Lee Gelernt.
Thanks, Gary. This is great to be here. I really appreciate you having me. It's great to be with Gary again. As Gary said, we go back a long, long way. So what I thought I would do is just focus on one case, one of the cases that Gary mentioned, which has to do with the Trump administration's practice of separating families and taking children away. And I thought that's a case that's gotten a lot of attention over the years, but over the last 2 days actually has blown up again in the news. It's was covered by all the networks. It's on the New York Times, Washington Post today, and potentially will be a subject of in the debate tonight because President Biden tweeted about it yesterday, and the White House issued a statement in response to a report we filed in court. And I suspect a lot of you have the basic outlines of this case, but I would maybe just give you a brief overview and sort of catch you up on what's been happening recently. So in the fall of, and Gary, maybe you can, we're leaving time for questions, right? So maybe you can just jump in and tell me when there's sort of 10 minutes left. Okay. Great. In the fall of 2017, we began hearing that families were being separated. These were families largely from Central America who were coming, seeking asylum, fleeing danger, and getting to the border and having their children taken away. And so we began making calls and hearing that it probably was true. By January of 2018, it became clear that it was happening. And I went out to San Diego to meet a woman who supposedly had her child taken away. And she became the lead plaintiff in the case. She goes by Miss L. And she told me her story. She was sitting in a detention center in San Diego and was gaunt, had not been eating, not sleeping, had been there 3 months without her child. She had fled the Congo, fearing for her life, and fled with her then 6-year-old daughter. It took her months to get here, often walking hundreds of miles by themselves, barefoot, eating out of garbage cans, begging for food, and finally got to the US border. And contrary to the narrative that the Trump administration put out that everybody who had their child taken had crossed the border illegally, she presented herself legally at the border, said, I'd like to apply for asylum. I'm going to be killed in the Congo if I don't get asylum. And this is all her recounting the story. They put her in a detention center with her child, and 4 days later, they asked her to come to a room. And then they said, we're going to have your child come to a different room. And she heard her child screaming. The child was 6 at the time, screaming and begging, please don't take me away from my mommy. They sent the child to Chicago. They didn't tell the mother where they were sending the child for days. And at that point, her child was in Chicago when I went to visit her and had celebrated her 7th birthday all by herself in a government facility in Chicago. And we brought a suit on behalf of her, and we ultimately expanded it because we had heard there were hundreds of families that had been separated. And the government claimed as to Miss L, the lead plaintiff, well, we didn't know she was really the biological mother. She could have been a trafficker. But of course, the little girl had been screaming and begging, Mommy, don't let them take me away. She also looked identical to her daughter. But the judge quickly cut through everything and said, well, wait, if you really genuinely believed it wasn't the daughter, biological daughter, why didn't you just do a DNA test? So they had to do a DNA test. Of course, it was the mother. We brought the lawsuit and expanded it and alleged that there may have been 300, 400, maybe even 500 children who had been taken from their parents. And we were hoping that most were not as young as this 6-year-old girl, that was an aberration. When the judge finally, and this was a Bush appointed judge, was not, the Trump administration's fond of saying it's only Obama judges who rule against us, said this is a brutal policy. And our take in court and the judge's take was, look, people can have reasonable disagreements about immigration, but in this country, we don't take children away. And it turned out they were even taking babies away 6 months, 7 months old, and taking them away for months and months and months. then deporting the parents without the child, often telling the parent, oh, your child will meet you on the plane, and then the plane would take off. It turned out when the judge ruled for us and said this policy is unconstitutional, that there have been 2,800 families that have been separated, many under 5. The court gave the government 30 days to reunite all the families and 14 days to reunite the children under 5 years old. The government missed those deadlines, but eventually reunited the families where the parent was still in the US, but then told the judge, well, we've already deported 470 of the parents without their children. And the government said, we're not going to find them. We're not going to go look for them. So the ACLU formed a committee and to find those families. And it took us a long time, almost a year, looking on the ground in Central America to find the families. And it was logistically difficult, time consuming, was also dangerous because gangs control so many of those areas. We thought that was the end of the case, but then a watchdog report from Health and Human Services and the government reported that, wait, there may have been thousands more children who had been taken from their parents before the 2,800 that the government had never told the court about, or us, or Congress, or the public. The government said, well, we're not going to give you that list of kids because they were taken way before the lawsuit. And the judge said, well, no, we want to know, we need to know who these children are. The government then said, well, we'll give the ACLU the list of names of the families. We're not going to look for them if they want to look for them, but it'll take us 2 years to give the list of names, not to find them, not to go out and find the parents, just to give the ACLU the list of the children who had been taken. And the judge said, well, why do you need 2 years? And the government said, well, candidly, we didn't actually keep track of which children we took, and we have to piece it together. So the judge said, no, I'm not giving you 2 years. You give the ACLU the names on a rolling basis, and I want it done within 6 months. So it wasn't until October of 2019 that we finally got this second list of children, and it turned out to be 1,556 children, 200 of whom were under 5 years old. These are the children that we had to start looking for in 2019, but because they had been separated so long ago at the very beginning of the Trump administration, the contact information the government provided us was largely stale, the phone numbers. And so that meant that we've had to look for more of them on the ground, town to town in Central America. We were making some progress, but then COVID hit, which has slowed things down. So it means that at least 500 families still have not been found. We don't know when we're going to find them. All we've been able to do is tell the judge, look, we're not going to stop till we find every last one of them. And so that's the stage we're in now in the litigation. And, you know, the numbers tell one story, the sheer number of separations that have occurred. I think there's really the human dimension of it, that each child is his or her own story. And, you know, for me, watching the litigation over the 3 years and meeting the families, there's just really, each story is so brutal in its own way. And it's some of the stories that stick with me are not even necessarily the ones where they're objectively the worst, but they just sort of stick with me. I mean, one boy, a 4-year-old Honduran boy, needed glasses, and his parents were from very, very modest means, but they were able to afford one pair of glasses and to scrape together the money to get a pair of glasses cases for the glasses, because they knew that they wouldn't be able to buy a second pair of glasses if the glasses broke. When they came to take away the boy, he was, 4 years old, screaming and crying, please don't take me away. And fortunately, though, he was wearing his glasses, but they didn't let the mother go get the glasses case. So all day long, all the mother thought about is, can my little boy see? If his glasses break, will they get him another pair of glasses? Will they at least give him a drawer to put his glasses in at night so they're in a safe place? Another father with a 7-year-old boy from Romania who had fled danger in Romania asked him, can I just have 1 minute to brace my 7-year-old son for what's going to happen, that you're going to take him away? And they said no. And they just screamed out, we're taking you. And the little boy is begging his father, what's happening? What's happening? And they shipped him all the way from Texas to New York by himself. Another child of one of our clients, 18 months old, they made the mother put the little girl into the car, strap her into the car seat, and close the door. And the mother was watching the little girl, craning her neck, turning around, waiting for the mother to get into the car because she's used to their mother walking around the car and getting in the front, and the car just drives away. Just one story like that after another. And I think, what happened was in 2018, when we revealed all this, there was a huge public outcry. And it wasn't just from liberals and Democrats, it was from conservatives and Republicans, conservative religious leaders, Laura Bush. The documentary just came out this week about the Pope, where he talks about the family separation policy. And I think what all of those people said was, what I said before is, look, there can be reasonable disagreements about immigration, but in this country, we just simply can't do that. We cannot make little children the pawns. And what the administration tried to say is, look, we need to deter asylum seekers from coming. There's just too many. And the problem with that, I think, was, in our view, twofold. One is it wasn't going to deter families who were in such danger. And when I asked mothers, would you have come anyway if you knew your child was going to be taken, they just threw up their hands and shrugged and said, well, what choice did I have? Because if I stayed, my child would have been killed. I would have been killed. So it wasn't ever going to actually deter families from coming. And that's why no prior administration has ever done it, Republican or Democrat, regardless of what the president is saying now. No administration has ever systematically taken away children. So it wasn't going to deter people. But the other thing I think people said, including Laura Bush, is, look, even if it were going to be an effective deterrent and stop asylum seekers from fleeing danger and coming here, there's just some things we don't do. We're not going to just go to that level of inhumanity and make these little children pawns. And she's pointing out, and everyone, little kids, 1 year old, 2 years old, 3 years old, just sitting in detention centers, having no idea where they are. And so that's where we are. We're still looking for the families. The only other thing I would add is that even once the families are reunited, and hopefully we'll be able to reunite all the families, is that the level of trauma that they've suffered is not going to go away easily. And the medical community, a lot of them feel like this could be irreparable trauma, because when you're 4 years old, the only reason you're not scared of the world at every moment is because you think your parents can protect you. And that was completely shattered. So when the little child is being pulled away and begging and screaming their mother or father, please don't let them take me, and the mother or father is standing there helpless, the child's whole world is shattered. So when I would talk to parents, one mother said to me, my 4-year-old just keeps asking me, are they going to come and take me away again in the middle of the night? That sense of deep vulnerability just sets in. And for the parents as well, the guilt is so overwhelming, because a lot of the kids would come back when they were finally reunited and say to their parents, didn't you love me enough to not let them take me? Why did you let them take me? And of course, they're too young to understand that the mother or father couldn't possibly have stopped it. And so that affects the child-parent relationship to such a great extent. So there's so much trauma there that we are doing our best to try and get them medical attention to work through the trauma. Because even those that are not manifesting it right now, I think there's this latent trauma of something bad is going to always happen to them. And so we're going to have to work through that. This election, I think, will affect things. I don't know what the Biden administration will do on immigration, but I think that he has committed to saying we will not separate children anymore. And I'm hoping that if there's a Biden administration, they will go further and provide some form of stability to these families, allow them to stay in the country, and maybe allow them to get medical attention. If there's a second Trump administration, we really don't know. I think because of our court action, we've stopped them largely from systematically separating children, but they are not allowing the parents who have been deported without their children to come back to the US to rejoin their children, forcing the parents into a very, very agonizing decision of whether they either permanently stay separated from their children or bring their children back to Central America. And many, of course, are bringing their children back to Central America. But the children who are gang recruitment age, a lot of times the parent is saying, I can't bear the thought of never seeing my child again, but even worse would be to bring my child back and have him killed. And when I was in Guatemala, that's how one father put it. He said, I just could never live with myself bringing my 17-year-old boy back, knowing that the gangs are going to either kill him or force him to become a gang member. So, it's a difficult situation. And this case, I think, has gotten the most attention, but there are many other things that the Trump administration is doing that we feel like are beyond sort of spectrum of what either a Democratic or Republican administration has ever done. I think there's always been disagreement on immigration, and we get that. And the Bush administration had a different view than the Obama administration and so on, but it was always within a certain spectrum of disagreement about immigration. And I think that's been shattered the last 4 years. And so that's what we've largely been dealing with. And that's sort of where we are. And maybe I stop now if people have questions about other issues or other cases that have come up, but maybe stop now so we have a little bit of time for question answers. Does that work, Gary? Or
We've got time for questions. So Susie, I think you're handling the questions today. We've got some I see in the chat box there already. Susie.
Yeah, we have quite a few questions already. So Sam Miller wants to know, where are the kids who haven't been reunited with their families now, and why hasn't the judge held the government in contempt?
Yeah, both good questions. So we've gotten all the children out of the government facilities, and they're either now with relatives or in foster care. If they're really lucky, they're with a close relative who maybe they even met at some point, a first uncle kind of thing, a cousin who they've met and had some relationship with. Some are with very distant relatives who they had never met before. And some, the really unfortunate ones who didn't have a relative in the US, are in with foster families. Why the judge hasn't held them in contempt, that's another good question. I think the judge between us is trying to straddle the line between forcing the government to do stuff, but not to the point where they maybe appeal it and go to the Supreme Court. It's a little bit tricky, but it's the right question. I think a lot of people feel like the government should have been held in contempt at various points, that maybe even that there should have been criminal penalties. We have brought a separate lawsuit against individuals in the Trump administration who were particularly involved, who initiated this policy to try to get them to pay civil damages for the family. Because what the medical community is saying in the American Academy of Pediatrics is this is basically child abuse. And child abuse, they ought to pay for it. Whether there's ever a sort of real criminal contempt or anything, I suspect not. But if we were able to get civil money damages, at least to pay for medical care, I think that would be a huge development. But those are both very good questions.
Hey.
So David Stein is asking, what is the rationale for deporting the parent and detaining the child in the US? Or did this just happen because the government didn't know what it was doing?
Yeah, that's another very good question, because I actually said that in court. I actually said, what is the government doing at one point? Why do they want to be taking care of these children and having a fine? And I think it is because they just didn't have a plan for reuniting them. And I think they couldn't figure out which parent went with which child. They thought the priority is to get the adult out, and then maybe the child will follow after. But it was so unorganized. The only thing they knew they wanted to do is take the child away. But how they would deal with it afterward, we just never even actually understood why they didn't try and remove both the parent and child together. But it was just a combination of incompetence and the left hand not talking to the right hand. And I think they probably just assumed that the child would follow along after, and never really thought it out, never really thought out that people would sue them. And they just didn't even have like a computer database with all the parent and child. So they had to have different computer databases. Sometimes it wasn't even in the computer. They had to go to paper records and piece together where all these children were and where all the parents were. And the judge at one point just threw up his hands and said, I can't believe this. The federal government seems like they track property better than children. If they take your car away, they punch into a computer where your car is, but they can't figure out which child goes with which parent. Sometimes when we pursuant to the court order, they'd bring a child back and the parent would say, that's not my child. And they'd say, okay, we'll go back and try and find, you know, it was bonkers.
Milton is asking, how do we get these stories out to the US and the world so that people pay more attention and understand the story?
Yeah, another good question, because what I have found is, you know, I can go on as many shows, cable shows, and talk about the rule of law till I'm blue in my face, but there's just so much going on. People flip the channels and it just becomes too abstract. It's a just talking head, but tell the stories of the children, people will listen and react. And so that's the key, is just continuing to get stories out. And I think we did a good job in the summer of 2018 when there was so much public outcry. But then there's just so much going on. It's been very difficult to keep it in the news. The last 2 days has been a huge uptick in coverage of it. Literally every cable news and every major paper has been covering it, and some of the late night shows. Stephen Colbert did a whole thing about it last night. But it's been hard. But I think the key is that we need to make it very, very human. But there's just so much going on in the world and so many things that it's become hard for us to, that's really our ultimate challenge. And we've tried to use sort of different ways of going about it, less conventional ways for us at least. This documentary that Gary mentioned called The Fight, which is on Hulu and Amazon Prime now, shows the reunification, us doing this litigation and the reunification of the Michelle, the woman from the Congo I mentioned before, coming together with her daughter, and the emotion of that and how raw it was. And, you know, so we're trying, but I don't think we have a silver bullet. It's just been very difficult, given that literally every day something comes out in the world about this administration that cable news networks switch to. We're trying to use celebrities as well to get it out. We put a video out with lots of very big celebrities, but you know, a lot of it just gets lost in the whole.
Lee, there was success. There was been a lot of press when Sean is asking about how there were a lot of deportations under Obama administration.
Right.
How is this, what you're seeing today, different from what was happening during the administration of Obama?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And so we have felt at the ACLU during the Obama administration, we sued the Obama administration a lot and felt like he wasn't as good, that administration wasn't as good as they could have been on immigration, because they did deport lots and lots of people. I think the difference is here, and that's, you know, one of those things which we believe is sort of people can reasonably disagree about who should get deported. But what's different here is the separation of the children. Notwithstanding this president saying that prior administrations did it, no prior administration, Republican or Democrat, ever took the children away. They might have deported a lot of people, and we were upset that the President Obama was deporting too many people who we thought had actually rehabilitated themselves and shown that they should have a chance to remain here. But never were the children taken away like this. And I think that's the big difference, is that some of these things that the Trump administration is doing are just sort of, we feel like, at beyond the sort of normal give and take of what's proper immigration.
2 more questions.
Yep.
I got, why is it, Jack asking, why is it the ACLU's responsibility to find the children? You know,
Yeah.
Lost them, and certainly have the resources to find them.
Exactly. So what happened was, in court, the government said, we're not going to find them. The ACLU wants to find them there. And so we made the strategic decision, whether it was right or wrong, I don't know, that if we had to fight with the government and get the court to order them to go look, that would take time, and that we couldn't be sure that the government was actually vigorously looking for the families.
Mhm.
And we were also somewhat worried that because, well, that the administration had done to the families in the first place, they would be wary about being found by this government. So for all those reasons, we just decided we are going to do it. And that has, been a difficult job. Obviously, it's cost a lot of money. I mean, we're hoping to get reimbursed by the federal government at some point, but even that's not sure. But I think that's a very good question. There's no question that they were the wrongdoers and should have had to put things back together. But at the end of the day, we just felt like we would end up spending almost more time trying to stay on top of them to actually do the looking, since they were so resistant. I mean, and I think the judge was actually shocked when they stood up in court and said, we're not looking for them. The ACLU wants to find them, let them find the parents, but that ended up being the reality of it. And,
Well-
maybe a stupid move for us to say it, but
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know.
you didn't know what to do with
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I thought I had one more question here. Do we have any more, Susie? There was one.
No, hold on.
Anybody else got any questions? Any more questions? I know you got to go, Lee, and it's a very, very busy time for you. But
Yeah, Seth.
yes,
Yeah, Allison Bliss put in a good comment. I want to support her question. She said, if Rotary has members worldwide, including Guatemala or Costa Rica, isn't there a way to ask the Rotary chapters there to help find the parents?
Is that,
I thought-
that's a great question, Mary.
Yeah, so I think that's something that it would be great to follow up with you all about. I think it would have to be the kind of people who maybe are living in the communities and might know, if we gave them the name, it might spark something. Whether they could be doing investigation, I think would depend on who they are, because it is difficult work, it's dangerous. But I think that's something we ought to follow up on, because if there are people in those countries, it may just be as easy as they live in the community. They say, oh, I know that person, and
Mhm.
so, I can follow up with Gary about that, and we can see, because we certainly need help. I don't think it can be anybody doing it, but if you have people living in those communities, that might be a real possibility.
Yeah, there are a lot of them are movers and shakers, so they may, and there
Yeah.
are many Rotary chapters in different parts of the country.
Okay. Well,
In every country out there. So
yeah.
we've got 35,000 Rotary Clubs throughout the world. So would try to help you as well.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate that. And thank you so much for having me. This has been an interesting conversation.
My pleasure. Very much so. We'll make, it's very, very touching subject. It's affected a lot of us very much here. But this year, our club is making the homeless crisis in Oakland a priority. And to
Yeah,
that
that's
end,
good.
and as a gift to you for being our speaker for the day, in your honor, we are making a donation to support our unhoused residents in Oakland.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's
Yeah.
great.
Additionally, we would like to give you our centennial book, which documents 100 years of service and friendship in the third oldest club in the Rotary world, Oakland #3.
Wow. Okay. Well, I really appreciate it. That's great. And that's great that you're working on the homeless issue, because that definitely needs to be a priority as well. So
I thank you for this speech today, Lee. You were fantastic. One of the best ones I've heard for a while. It touched me more than anything I've had. And thank you, Gary, for inviting him as well. Then I want to let you go, because I know you got to get to your other meeting. You're busy this time of the year.
yeah.
And we have a few other things to do. Thank you so
Okay.
much, Lee.
Thank you all so much. So long.
All right. Roberta, I think Rotarian Roberta Abel, I think you had an announcement you wanted to make. I got a slide in here too. Roberta, are you on?
Seriously, I'm not showing myself today.
Yeah.
Anyway, if anyone would like to have a breakout room on a Zoom call, and I can train you to help get out the vote, I thought it would be lovely to have a Rotarian room and I can train you on a Zoom call on how to do that. So please contact me. Thank you, Seth. I have to do this.
I purposely got you in because if we want to go to a breakout session, we could do that right now for everybody to discuss not only this issue, but the voting issue that came up here today, and other ways that Rotarians can really help in this, to try to think of some way, and we would feed it back through Gary Flaxman to maybe approach our speaker with some kind of relief, some kind of way that we can do something for all those people.
Yeah, Mary and Allison, thank you so much. That was awesome.
So right now, I'd like to, Rotary CJ Hirschfield, will you tell us about the speaker for next week?
Thank you, Seth, if I can talk. Jim Lebrecht is an Oakland-based filmmaker, sound designer, and disability rights activist. Breck and Nicole Newnham are co-producer directors of Crip Camp, an award-winning documentary that was executive produced by Barack and Michelle Obama. The film tells the story of teen summer camp Gen Ed and its impact on the disability rights movement. This year, the film won the Audience Award at the Sundance Film Festival. Jim will talk about how the East Bay became a hub of the movement beginning in the 60s, and I would highly recommend you check out the film on Netflix. I think it's going to win the Academy Award. That's just me. Thanks.
All right, that's next week. Now, Executive Director Pat Williams, do we have any bell ringers for today?
Indeed we do, and I already have sent the invoices out. So we have Marie Savramuthu, who rang the bell for voting to celebrate that all of us can vote. We have Sandeepa Nayak and Dudley Thompson, who both rang the bell for Jack Isles. We have Keith Uriarty, who rang the bell for the ACLU. And we have Gary Flaxman and Joycey Mack, who rang the bell for our speaker, Lee Gelernt. Thank you.
That's 6 bell rings, I think I heard.
That's correct.
I love to ring my bell. So whenever we get it out. Thank you, Sam, for the thought for the day, and congratulations, Jack, on gaining your blue badge. Thank you, Danny. I guess it was Sean for notifying us about the BDC Virtual Business Expo. And thank you, Gary, for introducing a fabulous speaker. Thank you, David, the original sponsor for this meeting. And Pat, before no other bell ringers, did anybody else come in?
I don't see any others yet.
So I'd like to end this meeting as usual, and that's the way it went on the 5,314th club meeting on October 22nd, 2020, Oakland Rotary number 3, the 3rd oldest Rotary Club in the world. Everyone remember, Rotary opens opportunities for service above self.